The Essential Drucker, by Peter F. Drucker. Introduction. Imagine for a moment, 3 men working side by side on a construction site. They're all doing the exact same job, cutting large blocks of stone. A traveler walks by and asks the first man, "What are you doing?" The man, without even looking up, replies, "I'm making a living." The traveler moves to the second man and asks the same question. The second man, with a sense of pride, says, "I'm the best stone cutter in the entire country." Finally, the traveler approaches the third man. He asks, "And what are you doing?" The man looks up, a visionary gleam in his eyes, and says, "I'm building a cathedral." All 3 men were doing the same task. But only one of them understood the bigger picture. Only one of them was truly a manager of his own purpose. This simple story gets to the very heart of the life's work of one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, Peter F. Drucker. If you've never heard his name, don't worry. He wasn't a flashy CEO or a celebrity entrepreneur. He was a quiet, thoughtful professor and consultant, a man born in Vienna in 1909 who lived through almost the entire century, watching history unfold. And from his unique vantage point, he didn't just see the world as it was, he saw the world as it was becoming. Drucker wrote nearly 40 books, translated into dozens of languages, and his ideas have shaped modern business, leadership, and even the non-profit world in ways that are hard to overstate. He was the man who first told us that the purpose of a business isn't just to make a profit. He was the one who foresaw the rise of the knowledge worker, people like you and me, who work with our minds, not just our hands. And he was the one who understood, long before anyone else, that the most important person you will ever manage is yourself. Today, we're going to journey through his masterwork, The Essential Drucker. This isn't just a book about business management. It's a blueprint for understanding the modern world. It's a guide to finding your place in it, and a manual for building a life of meaning, contribution, and effectiveness. So, my promise to you is this: by the end of our time together, you won't just have learned a few business tactics. You will have a new lens through which to see your own potential, your future career, and the very society you are about to step into. You will learn the difference between being busy and being effective, between having a job and having a purpose. You will learn how to start building your cathedral. Book summary. Let's travel back in time for a moment, to the 1850s. Imagine a factory, the largest and most profitable of its day. It's a cotton mill in Manchester, England. Inside, nearly 300 people are working. But if you were to look for a manager, you wouldn't find one. The owner, a man named Friedrich Engels, was friends with Karl Marx, and in his factory, there were only charge hands, workers who simply enforced discipline over a few other workers. That world seems alien to us now, doesn't it? In less than 150 years, an idea, the idea of management, emerged and completely transformed the fabric of our world. It's the invisible force that took us from a world of manual laborers to a world of educated knowledge workers. Peter Drucker argues that this is the most important, and least understood, revolution of our time. So, what is this thing called management? And more importantly, what is a business for? If you ask the typical business person or economist, they'll give you a simple answer: an organization to make a profit. Drucker says this answer is not only false, it's irrelevant. Think about it this way. Profit is not the purpose of a business, it's the test of its validity. It's like oxygen for the human body. You need oxygen to live, but living is not about breathing. Life is about love, and growth, and contribution. Breathing is just the mechanism that makes it all possible. Profit is the same for a business. It's a necessary condition for survival, but it's not the reason the business exists. Believing that business is all about maximizing profit Drucker warned, is one of the most dangerous diseases of our society. It misunderstands the very nature of what a business does. So, if not for profit, what is the purpose of a business? Drucker gives us a revolutionary answer, one that changes everything. He says, there is only one valid definition of business purpose: to create a customer. Stop and let that sink in. A business isn't there to sell things. It's there to create a customer. Markets are not created by God or by economic forces. They are created by business people who see a need and find a way to meet it. Sometimes the need is obvious, like hunger in a famine. But often, the need is unfelt. No one knew they wanted a personal computer until Apple and IBM showed them what it could do. Business action, through innovation, advertising, and salesmanship, creates the customer. And once you accept this, everything else falls into place. If the purpose is to create a customer, then a business has only two basic functions. Not accounting, not human resources, not production. Just two: marketing and innovation. Now, don't get confused. By marketing, Drucker doesn't mean slick advertisements or aggressive selling. In fact, he says that true marketing is the very opposite of selling. Selling starts with your product and tries to find someone to buy it. Marketing starts with the customer. It asks, what are their needs? What are their realities? What do they value? The aim of marketing, Drucker says, is to know and understand the customer so well that the product or service fits them and sells itself. It's about making selling almost unnecessary. The second function, innovation, is the partner to marketing. It's not enough to just provide goods. A business must provide better and more economic ones. Innovation isn't just about technology. It can be a new price, a new convenience, or a new way of satisfying an old want. A salesman who sold refrigerators to Eskimos to keep their food from freezing too cold would be as much of an innovator as someone who invented a new product. It's about endowing resources with new, greater wealth-producing capacity. This simple, powerful idea, that a business exists to create a customer through marketing and innovation, is the foundation of everything. It forces an organization to look outward, to the world, instead of inward at its own problems. Because, as Drucker reminds us, the results of any enterprise exist only on the outside. The result of a business is a satisfied customer. The result of a hospital is a healed patient. The result of a school is a student who has learned something. Inside an enterprise, there are only costs. This is a profound shift in perspective. And it leads to a series of crucial questions that every leader, and indeed every employee, must ask. The first is, what is our business? This seems simple, but it's almost always a difficult question. A steel mill thinks it makes steel. A railroad thinks it runs trains. But is that really their business? Drucker tells the story of the Cadillac Car Company during the Great Depression. They were about to go under. The managers thought their business was transportation. But a German mechanic named Nicholas Dreystadt, who took over the company, saw it differently. He said, Cadillac competes with diamonds and mink coats. The customer does not buy transportation but status. That one insight saved the company and turned it into a massive success, even in the middle of a depression. To answer what is our business, you can't look inside. You must look outside, from the point of view of the customer. What want are you satisfying for them? Once you know what your business is, you must then ask, what will our business be? And what should our business be? This forces you to look at the future, at changing trends, technologies, and customer values, and to innovate. These questions are the first responsibility of top management. Failing to ask them is the single biggest cause of business failure. But understanding the purpose of an organization is only the first step. Drucker then turns his attention to the true engine of any enterprise, the people within it. Management, he says, is about human beings. Its task is to make people capable of joint performance, to make their strengths effective and their weaknesses irrelevant. And this brings us to one of his most powerful concepts, the rise of the knowledge worker. For most of history, the vast majority of people worked with their hands. They were farmers, servants, or blue-collar factory workers. Their work was defined by efficiency, doing things right. But in the 20th century, a new kind of worker emerged, someone who works with their mind, with what they have between their ears. This person, you, is a knowledge worker. And for a knowledge worker, the job is not efficiency, but effectiveness. It's not about doing things right, it's about getting the right things done. An engineering department that beautifully designs the wrong product is perfectly efficient, and completely useless. This changes everything about how we work and how we are managed. You cannot supervise a knowledge worker in detail. They can only be helped. They must direct themselves toward performance and contribution. In a knowledge organization, you are an executive, even if you don't manage anyone. Why? Because by virtue of your knowledge, you are responsible for a contribution that affects the entire organization's ability to get results. The junior chemist in the lab who decides which line of research to follow might be making a decision that determines the future of the company. He is an executive. The accountant who decides how to classify a product is an executive. The authority of knowledge, Drucker argues, is just as legitimate as the authority of position. But here's the challenge. The reality of an executive's life is designed to make them ineffective. Drucker identifies 4 realities that push every knowledge worker toward futility. First, your time is not your own. It belongs to everybody else. The phone rings, a customer needs you, your boss calls a meeting. You are a captive of the organization. Second, you are forced to keep operating, to deal with the daily crises that rush at you. But these events rarely tell you what's truly important. If you let the flow of events control you, you will just fritter yourself away. Third, you are effective only when other people use your contribution. Your knowledge is useless by itself. It has to be taken by someone else and turned into their output. This means your success depends on people you often have no control over, colleagues, superiors, people in other departments. And fourth, you live inside an organization. The inside is where you see the problems, the politics, the budgets. But the results are always outside. The danger is that the inside reality will blind you to the outside reality, where the opportunities and the true measures of success lie. So, what can you do? If the world is designed to make you ineffective, how do you fight back? Drucker says that effectiveness must be learned. It's not a gift you're born with. It's a habit, a complex of practices that anyone can acquire. And it starts not with your tasks, but with the one resource you can't get more of, your time. Most people who try to get organized start with a to-do list or a plan. Drucker says this rarely works. Effective people start by finding out where their time actually goes. This is the first step. Record your time. For a few weeks, keep a log of how you spend every minute of your day. Don't trust your memory. It will lie to you. Write it down as it happens. Drucker tells of a company chairman who was certain he spent his time on big-picture strategy and meeting with important customers. His time log revealed he spent most of his day acting like a dispatcher, chasing down small orders that were going through just fine without him. He was shocked, but the log didn't lie. Once you have the data, the second step is to manage your time. Ask yourself 3 diagnostic questions. 1. What would happen if this were not done at all? If the answer is nothing, then stop doing it. You'll be amazed at how much of what you do is unnecessary. 2. Which of these activities could be done by someone else? The goal isn't just to delegate, it's to free yourself up for the work that only you can do. 3. What do I do that wastes other people's time? Have the courage to ask your colleagues this question. You might learn that your helpful meetings are actually keeping everyone from their real work. Drucker also points out organizational time wasters, like recurrent crises that should be turned into routines, overstaffing where people just get in each other's way, and an excess of meetings, which he calls a concession to deficient organization. The final step is to consolidate your time. Knowledge work requires large chunks of uninterrupted time. Writing a report in 15-minute bursts for 3 weeks is useless. You need to carve out hours at a time. Find what works for you. Maybe it's working from home 1 day a week, or scheduling all your meetings on 2 days and leaving the other 3 free for deep work. Know thy time, Drucker says, and you are well on the road to effectiveness. But managing your time is just the beginning. The truly effective person then asks a deeper question. This is the heart of Drucker's philosophy for the individual. He doesn't ask, "What do I want to do?" He asks, "What can I contribute?" This question shifts your focus from your own efforts to the results of the whole organization. It moves you from being a subordinate, no matter your title, to being part of top management. The person who says, "I run the accounting department," is a subordinate. The person who says, "It's my job to give our managers the information they need to make the right decisions," is a leader. Focusing on contribution forces you to think about what the organization needs from you, what your colleagues need from you, and what results you are responsible for. It makes your relationships productive, because they become focused on a shared task, not just on pleasantries. It fuels your self-development, because to make a bigger contribution, you have to ask yourself, what skills do I need to acquire? What strengths do I need to improve? And it develops others, because you set a high standard based not on your personality, but on the demands of the task. People, Drucker observed, adjust to the level of the demands made on them. He tells a beautiful story about a hospital where a long-retired nurse named Nurse Bryan had left an incredible legacy. She wasn't a supervisor, just a floor nurse. But whenever a decision came up about a patient, she would always ask, "Are we doing the best we can do to help this patient?" Years after she was gone, her rule, Nurse Bryan's rule, still echoed through the hospital. In meetings, people would stop and ask, would this have satisfied Nurse Bryan? And it would force them to aim higher, to do better. That is the power of focusing on contribution. To make your greatest contribution, however, you need profound self-knowledge. This is where Drucker's advice becomes deeply personal. He says that to manage yourself, you must know the answers to 3 questions. 1. What are my strengths? Most people think they know, but they're usually wrong. There's only one way to find out for sure: feedback analysis. Here's how it works. Whenever you make a key decision or take a key action, write down what you expect will happen. 9 or 12 months later, compare the actual results to your expectations. Do this for a couple of years, and a pattern will emerge. You will discover your true strengths, the things you consistently do well. You'll also discover where you are incompetent, and the bad habits that are holding you back. The conclusions are simple but powerful. First, concentrate on your strengths. Put yourself in a position where you can use them. Second, work on improving your strengths. And third, waste as little effort as possible on improving areas of low competence. It takes far more energy to go from incompetent to mediocre than it does to go from first-rate to excellent. 2. How do I perform? This might be even more important than knowing your strengths. Are you a reader or a listener? Drucker points out that very few people are both. President Eisenhower was a reader. He needed written reports to make a decision. President Kennedy was a listener. He needed to hear people talk things through. If you're a listener trying to work like a reader, you will be ineffective. How do you learn? Do you learn by writing things down, like Beethoven, who filled notebooks he never looked at again? Do you learn by hearing yourself talk? Do you learn by doing? School assumes there's one way to learn, but that's not true. Find your way and act on it. Do you work well with people, or are you a loner? Do you perform best under stress, or in a predictable environment? Are you a big fish in a small pond, or a small fish in a big one? And crucially, are you a decision maker or an advisor? A great number 2 often fails when promoted to the top spot because they are a brilliant advisor but cannot take the pressure of the final decision. The key is not to try to change yourself. It's to work hard to improve the way you already perform, and to avoid situations where your way of performing sets you up to fail. 3. What are my values? This is the ultimate test. To be effective, your values must be compatible with your organization's values. They don't have to be the same, but they must be able to coexist. Sometimes, there's a conflict between your strengths and your values. You might be very good at something that you don't believe in, that doesn't feel like a worthy contribution. Drucker shares his own story. As a young man in the 1930s, he was a successful investment banker in London. It fit his strengths perfectly. But he realized that managing assets was not his value. People, he wrote, were my values. And I saw no point in being the richest man in the cemetery. So he quit, with no job and no prospects, and changed his life. It was the right thing to do. Knowing your strengths, how you perform, and your values allows you to answer the final question, where do I belong? Successful careers, Drucker concludes, are not planned. They belong to people who are prepared for opportunity because they know themselves. This self-knowledge can turn ordinary, competent people into outstanding performers. Once you understand yourself and how to be effective, you can then tackle the most critical task of any executive, making effective decisions. Drucker's approach to decision-making is, like everything else, deceptively simple and profound. Effective people, he noticed, don't make a lot of decisions. They concentrate on the few important ones. They're not impressed by speed, they're impressed by soundness. He breaks the process down into key elements. First, you must ask, is this a generic situation or an exception? A generic problem needs a rule, a principle. An exceptional problem needs to be handled as a one-off. The most common mistake managers make is treating a generic situation as a series of unique events, fixing leaks instead of redesigning the faulty pipe. Second, you must define the specifications of the decision. What are the boundary conditions? What minimum goals must the decision achieve? A decision that doesn't satisfy these conditions is worse than useless. This is what went wrong with President Kennedy's Bay of Pigs decision. The 2 specifications? Overthrow Castro, but make it look like the U.S. wasn't involved, were incompatible. It was a prayer for a miracle, not a decision. Third, start with what is right, not what is acceptable. You will always have to compromise in the end. But if you don't know what right looks like, you can't tell the difference between a good compromise and a bad one. As Alfred Sloan told Drucker, you tell us what's right. Don't worry about our reaction. We know how to make the compromises. But we can't make the right compromise unless you first tell us what right is. There's a difference between half a loaf of bread, which is still food, and half a baby, which is a corpse. Fourth, build action into the decision. A decision without an action plan is just a good intention. Who has to do what, when, and how? Unless it becomes someone's work assignment, nothing has been decided. And finally, build in feedback. A decision is a hypothesis. It must be tested against reality. This is why military commanders don't just rely on reports, they go and see for themselves. They know that to truly understand the situation, you have to get out of the office and look. But perhaps the most counterintuitive part of Drucker's process is his insistence on disagreement. Most books say, first, find the facts. Drucker says this is impossible. You don't start with facts, you start with opinions. Facts only exist once you have a criterion for relevance, which is itself an opinion. People who look for facts first will just find the facts that fit the conclusion they've already reached. The effective decision-maker knows this. So, he doesn't look for consensus. He encourages opinions, but he insists that they be tested. He asks, what would we have to see to prove this hypothesis is correct? And most importantly, he organizes disagreement. Alfred Sloan once said in a meeting, "Gentlemen, I take it we are all in complete agreement on the decision here." When everyone nodded, he continued, "Then I propose we postpone further discussion. To give ourselves time to develop disagreement and perhaps gain some understanding of what the decision is all about." Disagreement is crucial for 3 reasons. First, it's the only safeguard against the decision-maker becoming a prisoner of the organization, surrounded by people telling him what he wants to hear. Second, it provides alternatives. A decision without an alternative is a gambler's throw. And third, disagreement stimulates the imagination. It forces you to see the problem from new angles and find truly creative solutions. So, the effective person doesn't ask, who is right and who is wrong? He asks, why do we disagree? He knows that the person who sees things differently is probably looking at a different reality and is concerned with a different problem. Understanding that is the key to a sound decision. This focus on contribution, on self-knowledge, on time, and on decision-making is the core of Drucker's vision for the individual. But he then zooms out to look at how these effective individuals can create something new in the world. This is the realm of innovation and entrepreneurship. For Drucker, entrepreneurship is not some mysterious, romantic flash of genius. He dismisses that idea. Such flashes are rare, and they almost never turn into real innovations. Innovation, he says, is work. It's a discipline. And it can be learned and practiced. It starts with a systematic analysis of the 7 sources of innovative opportunity. These are the unexpected success or failure, incongruities between what is and what ought to be, process needs, changes in industry or market structure, changes in demographics, changes in perception, meaning, and mood, and finally, new knowledge. All of these sources should be constantly monitored. But once you have an idea, there are principles, the do's and don'ts of innovation. The do's are simple. 1. Analyze the opportunities systematically. Don't wait for inspiration. 2. Go out and look, ask, listen. Innovation is both conceptual and perceptual. You need to look at figures, but you also need to look at people. 3. Keep it simple and focused. An innovation should do one thing. If it's complicated, it will break. 4. Start small. Don't aim to revolutionize an industry overnight. A small, tentative start allows you to learn and make adjustments. 5. Aim at leadership. Even if the market is small, the innovation must aim to be the best, to establish a unique position. The don'ts are just as important. 1. Don't try to be clever. Innovations have to be used by ordinary people. Simplicity wins. 2. Don't diversify or splinter your efforts. Stay focused on a core area, whether it's a technology or, Even better, market knowledge. 3. Don't innovate for the future. Innovate for the present. An innovation must have an immediate application. The future is just a bonus. Successful innovators, Drucker concludes, are not risk takers. They are conservative. They aren't risk-focused. They are opportunity-focused. They systematically define the risks and try to minimize them. With this understanding, Drucker lays out 4 distinct entrepreneurial strategies. The first is being fastest with the mostest. This is the high-stakes gamble to dominate a new market or industry from the start. Think of DuPont with nylon. They invented a new material and then threw massive resources into plants, advertising, and market creation to build the plastics industry. It's a moonshot. If it hits, the rewards are immense. If it misses, it's gone forever. The second strategy is creative imitation. This seems like a contradiction, but it's brilliant. The creative imitator lets someone else pioneer the new product, but then comes in and perfects it, positions it, and understands the market for it better than the original inventor. IBM did this with the computer. The first computer, the ENIAC, was built at a university for scientific work. IBM saw its potential for business, adapted the design, and within a few years, they owned the market. The creative imitator looks at the new thing from the customer's point of view and serves a demand the pioneer created but isn't adequately supplying. The third strategy is entrepreneurial judo. This is the art of using the size and bad habits of established leaders against them. When the transistor was invented, the big American electronics companies ignored it. It wasn't invented here, and it seemed low quality compared to their beautiful vacuum tubes. A small, unknown Japanese company called Sony bought the license for a tiny sum, put the transistor in a cheap portable radio, and conquered the world market. Entrepreneurial judo finds a beachhead the big players aren't defending, the low end of the market, the customer who is being ignored, and uses it to build a dominant position. The final strategy is finding an ecological niche. This isn't about dominance, but control. It's about finding a small, essential part of a process and becoming the only supplier, a practical monopoly. This could be a tollgate position, like a company that makes a crucial enzyme for cataract surgery, a specialty skill position, like the company that makes all the electrical systems for cars, or a specialty market position, like the companies that know every baker in the world and supply all their ovens. These businesses are often anonymous, but highly profitable and safe from competition. All of these strategies require an understanding of the customer and the market. But as Drucker looks to the future, he sees these principles applying not just to business, but to society itself. We are living through another great social transformation, he says, as profound as the Industrial Revolution. We have moved from a society of farmers and domestic servants to a society of blue-collar workers, and now, to a knowledge society. In this new society, knowledge is the key resource. And knowledge workers are its leading class. This has massive implications. Education becomes the central institution of society. And competition becomes global and universal, because knowledge is universally accessible. There are no poor countries, only ignorant ones. This knowledge society is also a society of organizations. The individual knowledge worker is effective only as a member of an organization, which can convert their specialized knowledge into performance. But this creates a new kind of employee. The knowledge worker owns the means of production, their own knowledge. They are mobile. They need the organization, but the organization needs them even more. And in this new world, one of the greatest challenges and opportunities is something entirely new in human history: the need to manage the second half of your life. For the first time, individuals can expect to outlive organizations. A 50-year working life is becoming the norm. But doing the same work for 50 years is too long for most people. They get bored, they stagnate, they retire on the job. The midlife crisis of the executive, Drucker says, is mostly just boredom. So, what do you do? Drucker offers 3 answers. First, you can start a second, different career. The business controller moves to a hospital. The lawyer who's made her fortune starts a non-profit to build model schools. Second, you can develop a parallel career. You stay in your main job, but you start a second activity, often in the non-profit sector, that takes another 10 or 15 hours a week and gives you a new challenge and a new community. Third, you can become a social entrepreneur. You keep doing your main work, but you pour your energy into starting a new venture that addresses a social need. The key to all of this is to start early. You don't wait until you're 60 to start volunteering or exploring a new field. You build these second interests in your 30s and 40s, so they are ready when you need them. A second major interest is also your greatest protection against the inevitable setbacks of life, being passed over for a promotion, or a personal tragedy. It gives you a sphere where you can still contribute, make a difference, and be somebody. This is a revolution in human affairs. It demands that every knowledge worker think and behave like a chief executive officer of their own life. And this leads to Drucker's final, grand vision. In this new knowledge society, where old communities like the family and the village have lost their integrating power, we need something to hold us together. Government can't do it. It has proven incompetent at running social services. The workplace can't do it. It's a tool, not a total community. The answer, Drucker says, lies in a new, autonomous social sector. This third sector of nonprofit, volunteer organizations is where the real social work gets done. In the United States, organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous, the Salvation Army, and countless church-run schools are achieving the successes that massive government programs have failed to produce. But more than that, this sector is where we can restore citizenship. In the massive modern state, the individual citizen feels powerless. All you can do is vote and pay taxes. But as a volunteer in a social sector organization, you can make a difference. This is where we find community, commitment, and contribution. This, finally, brings us to the new definition of an educated person. In the past, the educated person was an ornament, a humanist who knew the classics but stood apart from the world of work. But in the knowledge society, the educated person is at the very center. The new educated person cannot be just a specialist, nor can they be just a liberal arts generalist who scorns the world of practice. They must be prepared to live in 2 cultures at once, the culture of the intellectual, who focuses on words and ideas, and the culture of the manager, who focuses on people and work. They must be a citizen of the world, able to appreciate cultures beyond the West. But they must also be rooted in their own traditions. They must understand the different knowledges. What is economics about? What is geology trying to do? Not to become an expert in everything, but to create a shared universe of discourse that holds our fragmented world together. The worldview is shifting. For 300 years, since the invention of the steam engine, we have lived in a mechanical universe, one that could be understood through analysis, by taking it apart into its pieces. But the computer, while the ultimate product of that analytical age, has pushed us into a new one. Information is the organizing principle of biology, not mechanics. A biological system is a whole, different from the sum of its parts. It requires not just analysis, but perception. We are learning to see patterns, configurations, and wholes. We are moving from Descartes' I think, therefore I am, to a new understanding, I see, therefore I am. The future is uncertain, but Drucker gives us the tools to navigate it. The challenges are great, but they are not tasks for governments to solve alone. They are tasks for individuals, for managers and professionals in their own organizations and in their own lives. It all comes back to that third stonecutter. To see the cathedral you are building. To take responsibility for the whole. To focus on your contribution. And to build a life of purpose, effectiveness, and meaning in a world of constant change. Commentary. As we close the pages of the Essential Drucker, it's almost hard to believe when these ideas were written. Some of them date back to the 1950s and 60s, yet they feel as if they were written for our world today, a world of global networks, startup culture, and constant, dizzying change. That's the mark of a truly timeless thinker. Peter Drucker wasn't just observing the present, he was seeing the currents of history that were shaping the future. What I find most powerful about Drucker's work is its profound humanity. In a field that can so often be reduced to numbers, spreadsheets, and cold, hard strategy, Drucker always brings it back to people. He reminds us that an organization is nothing more than a community of human beings working together. Its purpose is not to make money, but to serve human needs. Its greatest resource is not capital, but the knowledge, skill, and commitment of its people. The single most transformative idea in this entire book, for me, is the simple question, what can I contribute? It's a question that can change not just your career, but your entire life. It shifts your mindset from one of entitlement, what can I get, to one of responsibility, what can I give? It forces you to look beyond your own small world and see yourself as part of a larger whole. It is the question that turns a job into a mission, and a stonecutter into a cathedral builder. If there's one thing I hope you take away from our time together today, it is the empowering idea that effectiveness is a choice. It is not a talent you are born with. It is a set of practices that can be learned. You can learn to manage your time. You can learn to identify your strengths. You can learn to make sound decisions. You can learn to focus on contribution. These are not grand, abstract theories, they are practical, learnable skills. So, how can you start putting these ideas into practice right now? Let me offer 3 simple actions you can take today. First, start your feedback analysis. The next time you begin a significant project or make an important decision, take just 2 minutes to write down what you expect the outcome to be. Put it in a sealed envelope or a private digital note. Then, in 6 or 9 months, open it up and compare reality to your expectations. This simple act of self-reflection is the fastest path I know to discovering your true strengths. Second, the next time you're given an assignment, ask the contribution question. Before you dive into the how, stop and ask why. What is the one contribution I can make in this project that will have the greatest impact on the overall goal? Frame your work around that answer. And third, track your time for just 3 days. Don't try to change anything, just observe. Use a simple notebook or a notes app and be honest with yourself. Where does your time really go? The awareness you gain from this simple exercise will be the first and most critical step toward taking control of your most precious resource. Peter Drucker has given us more than a management textbook. He's given us a philosophy for living in the modern world. A world where you are the CEO of your own life, responsible for your own growth, your own career, and your own contribution. It's a world that demands more of us than ever before, but it also offers more opportunity for meaning, for purpose, and for impact. That was a journey through the Essential Drucker by Peter Drucker. We've touched on some of the highest peaks of his wisdom today, but I have to be honest with you, a summary, no matter how detailed, is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. It can show you the layout, point out the landmarks, but it can never replace the experience of actually walking the trails yourself. The real magic of this book happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with your own life in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your map. It's designed to help you decide if this is a journey you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a fire in you, grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself, your work, and your world. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring the ideas that have shaped the world's most successful people, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.